We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. Did I say that? AV Rant. There, let's enunciate.
You did say it. I mean, it sounded like it to me.
It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And if my voice isn't a clue and the way we started this isn't a clue, we are both very under the weather. I wanted to mention that okay, so you know how you can be sick and you got the sore throat and the stuffy nose and all that, and you're feeling crummy, but you're like, all right, I'm sick, whatever. I have not felt like sick as I felt Sunday and Monday. Like, you know the green face emoji?
Yeah.
That was me. Like, I have not felt that sick in a long time. So, that was not fun, but I'm on the mend, but my voice is a little bit raspy and there might be some coughing. And then Tom got sick too.
I didn't get sick. I don't know what I am. My son came home from school sick last week on Wednesday with he's like, I feel real bad. Come pick me up from the bus stop. I'm like, and I couldn't even get there in time before he called everybody to come get him. My dad got him before I got him. And then he came home and he was, he said he felt bad, but he didn't have a fever. An hour later, he had 102. And an hour after that, he had 104. I'm like, dude, you are sick. This, of course, is on Wednesday, and his birthday is on Saturday. He was born on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So he was sick, but by Saturday morning, he was better. So, but he was pretty bad for those 2 days. And I think I'm mostly just reacting to the environment and pollen and everything like that. But I'm just feeling pretty run down myself. So, yes. It's going to be one of those. It's going to be the sick cast.
It's going to be. But we're still here because we have lots and lots of questions, and we don't want to leave people hanging and end up with such a large backlog that we'd never catch up. So we're trucking through.
It's never going to be never. We're always going to catch up eventually. It's going to happen.
One way or another.
Yes, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Okay. I've still got a little bit of a cough drop in my mouth. I'm trying to say this. It's real hard. I'm not going to lie. It's extremely difficult, but I'm going to power through. You can also reach us by commenting at www.avrant.com, facebook.com/avrantpodcast. You can go to youtube.com/c/avrant, where you can leave us a comment that we will promptly ignore. Unless you're from a major manufacturer, then somehow we'll find it, I suppose. Happens. You want to contact us directly, you got Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is at FirstReflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom. We have our producer, Austin. His email is just question@avrant. He's monitoring that most of the time. You can also reach him at Austin, TEN Pond. Austin has got his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast, where it's not about watching movies. It's about how best to connect with your lady friend in a movie theater while not watching movies at all. So it's all about sort of getting your grope on or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
You could have said date. Could have just said getting your
snuggle on. Well, there's a lot. They have the arms that come up now, right? So you can almost sit together, except they never go all the way back.
If you go to a Dolby cinema, they're all reclining love seats. Every seat in there is a reclining love seat.
Wait, what? Every seat is a love seat, like with two people?
Yeah, at a Dolby cinema, every seat is a reclining love seat. Two seats, no arm in between the two of them. So
what happens if you don't want to sit next to the person next to you?
You are stuck. You better bring your own
divider. You have to touch
divider.
legs with random people next to you?
Better bring a manila folder and stuff it in the seam in between the two seat cushions.
Well, I don't like that. I'm not going to one of those. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing. I didn't know that was a feature.
That's what they're doing.
I don't like it. I disapprove of that.
You can pay your $50 for 2 tickets.
And it's like a $3 each convenience fee for ordering online, which is ridiculous. I was so mad. All right, so Yeah, it's been sort of a thing. So my son, who had his birthday, didn't actually have a birthday party. He wasn't planning on having a birthday party because he just didn't get it together in time. We just did whatever. But he wanted to go to the movies, but he wanted to go see either Pacific Rim or Ready Player One.
Neither of which is out yet.
Right, which is why he wasn't planning a party to begin with.
Sure.
But then both of those movies are PG-13.
Okay.
And he's just turned 12, and all of his friends are 12.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, we're not taking all your friends to a PG-13 movie.
Oh, I see. You don't want to be the chaperone. Because
I
they
don't
could
want
go
to-
with a chaperone, but...
They could, and they would have to. I mean, I would go, but I'm not going to be the one that's calling all their parents and be like, listen, I know it's PG-13, but are you going to be the ones that can let your kid go because you're sticking the mud? I'm not going to be that guy. So instead, I convinced him that we should buy Thor Ragnarok.
Sure.
And we should watch it at our house with the good home theater.
Yeah.
And then I convinced my wife that we needed an Ultra HD Blu-ray player so that we can get true Dolby Atmos in here.
Yes.
Even though I don't have a 4K projector. And even if I did, I don't think the cable that I put in my wall could support 4K anyways at any bit rate. So, yeah, so I bought one. It's right here.
Oh, it already came.
Yeah, it already came.
That's quick.
The Sony UBP X700. If you guys don't think, here it is right here. If you're all watching the YouTube video, you will see it's right here. But can you see it, Rob?
Yeah, I can see the box. Hold on, let me just switch some things on the video here so that people
see
can
that?
see it on the complete 2-hour video. Okay, there we go.
There you go. There it is. I bought it. It is in step one of getting integrated into my theater, where it ages like fine wine in the corner of in my home theater as I stare at it until it vexes me enough to do something about it. So it's in stage one. Well, it's stage two. I guess stage one is ordering it and getting it here. Stage two is that it has to age.
Yes.
That's what always happens. It just takes me forever to install anything. So that's here.
Okay, so the X700, that's Sony's newest player. That's the one that is at some point supposed to get the update so that it can support Dolby Vision, although that won't matter with a projector.
No.
Yeah, but there you go. Cool.
Yeah, so that's here, and I'm going to install that into the theater. And if anybody ever wonders if we practice what we preach, we are. And Rob said, oh, maybe you could ask Sony if they'll send you one for free. Let me tell you something about Sony. Sony ain't never sending me nothing for free ever.
Oh.
I think my name would have to be CNET before they would even consider it. So, I mean, you have to be real big to impress Sony. Sony is just way too big. We couldn't even get people to talk to us. When I was with Audioholics, we couldn't get people in the Sony booth to talk to us unless we had an appointment. Like, way ahead of time. And then it was just a marketing spiel that took forever, and no one had time for that nonsense. All right. So, we to talk about our listeners of the week. Let's start with, if you want to thank our listeners of the week, the people that support the podcast in some way. One way you can support the podcast is go to www.avrant.com and press on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, where you can leave us a PayPal donation. And we want to thank Terry for doing that. That money goes into our coffers to help pay for things like hosting fees and occasionally pieces of software that we use to do things with. Eventually, I'm going to pay for the Reaper software that I'm using. That's still been under. If they ever make me pay for it, I will definitely pay for it because I love it. But I just haven't. Look, this is the problem. It gives you 3 seconds to press the buy me button until it goes to still evaluating. And usually I miss the first 2 seconds just wondering what's going on. And then I go, oh, there it is. And then I can't get it in time. So it's their fault, I feel like. But
Sure.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate the donation.
We also want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/AVRantPodcast. Patreon's a service where you can sign up to support your artist that you love or like their content in a monthly subscription, and they will monthly take some money out of your account and give it to us, or some portion of it to us. I think as low as $1 and as much as you want per month. So thank you to all of our patrons.
Yeah, thanks to the 54 patrons we have over there at patreon.com/AVRantPodcast. We appreciate
There's going to be lots of coughing and I might
clearing of throats.
Clearing of it's
warning you
be
now.
A thing. I'm sorry. You might get sick just by listening to this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to reach through the digital fibers of the interwebs.
The interwebs.
Throw our viruses at you.
Like a bad Japanese animation.
Dr. Mario over here.
Tentacles will get into you and get you sick. If you can support the podcast in some other way other than financially, just let us know, and we're always happy to mention you. So we're going to mention Ash, who is the fellow who made our AV Rant logos and artwork. He picked up Gran Turismo for the PS4 recently. It lets you create custom liveries and artwork for the cars in the game. So it might not be a real race car, but some folks might come across Ash's AV Rant cars when he's playing online. So it's got AV Rant. It's pink. And are you showing this on the thing?
Yes, I'm showing it. Well, it's like neon orange.
It is quite okay. It looks pink on me. So it's very cool. It's very,
I love
very
those.
cool.
I mean, they look like shockingly real in the photos.
I know they do.
Graphics these days are crazy, but I very much like the one that has our full-on AV Rant logo on the hood. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, I like the whole thing. So Joe had some issues with his SVS PB13 amplifier, where at first he was getting popping noises, and eventually the sub just refused to power on altogether. The sub was past the warranty period, and he wasn't able to locate the information from his original order, so he did end up having to pay for a new replacement amp, but SVS gave him a discount, so it wasn't quite as expensive, and Joe mentioned us during the many emails that were sent back and forth, so thank you, Joe.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that, Joe. That's never a fun situation, but glad that it did all work out. He got things working again, and before we asked, he checked the fuse early on in the process, so that was not it. It was a defective amp.
It happens. Terry ordered an SVS SB2000 subwoofer and told them it was because of us, so thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning us, Terry. And Ash, I'll say it again, really like that artwork on those cars, so look for those if you're playing Gran Turismo online. Yeah.
And then let him win, because obviously he deserves to win. As far as I'm concerned, he is a winner. He's a winner. In the news, TCL's new 6 Series Dolby Vision and Roku TVs have been given a May 1st release date. The 55-incher will be $650, just like the 55P607 it replaces. The 65-incher is rumored to be under $1,000, so $999.
I'm thinking maybe $950. I'm thinking $950 might
it kind
happen.
of feels that way, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. So, all right, we got some comments here for some of our listeners. We'll go through these real quick. Infinite Gary has been following the development and release of the new Revel Performa Beryllium Series speakers. We mentioned the M126BE bookshelf model might make for a good comparison with the KEF LS50 and the Send Sierra 2s. Well, the M126BE is being released with an MSRP of $4,000 a pair. So not exactly in the same $1,500 a pair price range. The towers are $10,000 a pair.
Yeah.
Apparently they have like the really good beryllium, not the cheap stuff that everybody else uses.
Yeah, those are
the rare earth beryllium, not the normal earth. It's not like normal earth.
Yeah, those are a fair amount more expensive than I was really expecting. Apparently there's going to be a price increase on the Ultima 2 series as well. So things are getting expensive over there at Revel. That's kind of a trend I've been noticing in a lot of speakers. I've been seeing a lot of speakers prices inching upward. That's not the direction I want to see them going, but it seems
it's the direction that the market's going as far as how much money people have to spend, and that's what I think is driving that.
But, the RBH Impression Series more expensive, the ELAC Debut 2.0 series a little bit more expensive.
I don't know about the ELAC and the rest of these guys, but as far as I'm concerned, that first Impression Series was like stupid cheap.
Underpriced, right?
Way $700 for tower speakers. Shut up! You can't expect them to always be able to. And they went up from $700 to $1,000. And
$1,100. I mean, that's
$1,100. Okay, so $400. I mean, that's a significant price increase. But I thought those speakers were $1,000 speakers to begin with.
Right.
So they went up $100 in my head. You were getting the $300 off on that speaker to begin with. So, but everybody else, you're right. I agree. So Ted. If you remember, Ted is with the Legacy on-wall drama. Ted, as one last effort before taking his Legacy Silhouette speakers off the wall and moving them around, Ted decided to give Legacy Audio a call directly to see if they had any ideas. Bill Dudleston himself, the owner of Legacy Audio, got on the phone. Probably because he heard all these podcasts. Was like, I'm going to help that guy, Ted. He was super nice and extremely patient, and he offered Ted one more thing to try that we hadn't mentioned. Bill said to first run Audyssey and leave it on, then take one speaker and temporarily wire it in reverse polarity. Now play a mono test track, move to the left and right of the main listening position. At some location, it should sound as though the mono audio is coming from everywhere except directly in front of the listener. This identifies the location where maximum cancellation is happening and is almost always to one side or the other of the main listening position. Now, having identified which side had the maximum cancellation effect, wire the speakers back in the proper polarity and then adjust the phase and trim of the speaker on that side until the imaging locks into place directly in front of the main listening position. No word from Ted yet on whether or not this worked, but it's worth a shot, right? And the answer to that is yes, anything is worth a shot.
Absolutely.
At this point, get those little clever clocks and the little spikes that totem spell, the whole thing, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, given that this is free and doesn't involve any major sort of renovation or moving of anything.
You don't even have to take them off the wall. You can wire them out of phase at the receiver.
That's correct.
So.
Absolutely. For sure. Give it a try. Try everything you can.
I would, yeah. Let's get to the questions here. Terry uses a projector in his home theater. He's thinking he'd like to upgrade to a 4K UHD capable projector in the not too distant future, but sometimes he wants to listen to music in his theater or he'd like to get a movie all queued up and ready to play without having to turn on the projector and burn up lamp hours. So he'd like to connect a small 22-inch monitor, and he'd like it to be really cheap. But then he's worried about the HDCP 2.2 and potentially causing audio problems as well. He's using a Marantz SR6011. How can he have the small cheap monitor in his AV rack and still have a 4K projector without causing potential down conversion issues in either the audio or the video? I feel like this is a Zone 2 thing that could happen. Could we do this through Zone 2? I feel like that's the way. And even... couldn't he just use almost like composite or something if they had that back there? I mean, it really wouldn't have to be, because once he got it queued up, then he turns off that monitor and then turns on the other one, right?
I'm not sure if there's a composite Zone 2 output.
Well, I'm just saying, he doesn't have to use HDMI is what I'm saying. He could use anything that's back there.
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking is you could, if you're willing to spend the money for that 24-inch Dell monitor, the S2418HN. I mean, it is available from Best Buy for $180 right now. So
it's pretty cheap.
That's not insanely expensive. And the thing about that is it's compatible with HDR10. So your projector is going to be HDR10. You don't have to worry about Dolby Vision.
Right.
I'm not actually sure if that monitor can accept a 4K signal, though, because it is a 1080p resolution monitor.
Right.
So I'm not sure on inputting a 4K signal to it, but it could do the HDR part of it. And then if you were to have that as so on the back of his Marantz SR6011, there is the main HDMI output, the second HDMI output, which is a mirrored one, and then the Zone 2 HDMI outputs. So there's 3 HDMI outputs total, but 2 of them are mirrored. So if he got an HDR monitor like this one, he could connect it to just the mirrored output, and that should work, because then the audio is all being handled by the AV receiver at all times. But let's say he doesn't want to do that, and let's say $180 is still too expensive, or there is the issue with inputting 4K to that one. I would suggest getting a DVI, or getting a computer monitor that has DVI, and connecting that with an HDMI to DVI cable to the Zone 2 HDMI output of his Marantz, because that way you don't have to worry about audio, because if you have a monitor connected to Zone 2 and it happens to be on at the same time as your main zone gets down mixed to 2-channel, because that's what the Zone 2 monitor can handle. So you actually want to connect a monitor that doesn't do audio at all, and DVI would make sure that happens. DVI doesn't accept audio whatsoever. So an HDMI DVI cable is all you need. Connect that to Zone 2. And then you would have to make sure that when it is time to use your projector, you turn Zone 2 off on the receiver. And that would work. So you could get a super cheap little computer monitor that has a DVI input on it, connect it to your Zone 2, just make sure you turn that off when it's projector time.
That Dell can't accept 4K from what I can tell. I looked.
Cannot?
It cannot accept 4K,
okay.
As far as I can tell. So,
Boo.
Yeah, I think the Zone 2 is probably the easiest way to go. Yep. No matter what monitor you get, you can just go Zone 2, and it'll just be, just turn Zone 2 on, look at what, queue everything up, and then turn Zone 2 off, and then Zone 1 back on, and
Yeah.
when you're ready to go. Byron watched the first Avengers movie the other day. It looked like the whole movie stayed in 16:9 aspect ratio, and he was glad when he went. So he was glad he went with the 16:9 screen. Otherwise, it would have been smaller than this 2.35:1 aspect ratio movies, which would have felt odd for such a big epic feature. But this is really correct. Is a movie like Avengers supposed to be the same height as 2.35:1 movies, but not as wide, or is it supposed to be just as wide but even taller? Or maybe it's supposed to be somewhere in between, not quite as wide but a bit taller. Obviously, if we get all 4 gigantic 16:9 screens with the 4-way motorized masking, that would allow us to make our screens any shape and size. But for mere mortals, what's the best solution? Just live with black bars and some movies being smaller than they're supposed to be? Or is there something that we could do that doesn't cost 5 figures? Yeah, isn't the Avengers just 16:9? I mean, it's not.
Well, it's 1.85 to 1.
Yeah. So there's probably a little bit of a bar at the top and the bottom that he's not noticing.
There's a very
sort of
small
thing.
black bar at the top and the bottom of your 16:9. That's right.
Yeah.
Because
So
16:9 is, what is that, 1.77 or 1.78 to 1 is 16:9. So 1.85 is just slightly wider.
Yeah. So what's the... Rob and I are going to disagree on this. It doesn't really matter. But so the thought process here is that, you know, the 2.35 to 1's width should be wider than a 16:9, which should be, you know, wider than a 4:3.
Yeah, they should all, in those cases, they should all have the same height, but they're just getting wider and wider as you go out. Yeah.
That's the idea. Okay. What is the solution? The solution is to get the tallest one, which is 16:9.
Sure.
And then get it as big as you can get for your screen, and then deal with black bars going up. So yes, your images are getting smaller. Well, your 4:3 is getting smaller because it's supposed to be getting smaller, so that's not a problem there. But your 2.35 to 1 is getting it should get wider, and it doesn't.
Right.
Theoretically. To me, if you got the right screen size, you wouldn't want, if you got as big a 16:9 as you can really fit as far as what you want, I don't really want anything wider than that, because then I have to start turning my head. So basically, you're forced to, at that point, say, okay, I want the widest thing in my room to be 2.35 to 1.
Right.
So I don't want to have to turn my head or move my eyes for 2.35 to 1, which means that in order for that same height to fit a 16:9, my 16:9 is going to be considerably smaller width-wise than my 2.35 to 1. That's just the logistics of it.
Yeah.
For me, I would much rather say, how wide a screen can I have, and how tall does it have to be to get all the stuff on it? And that's a 16:9, biggest I can get it for my field of view. And then my 2.35 to 1s do look smaller, but I don't care.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I'm not actually sure whether 1.85s, like if you went to an absolutely perfect spec cinema, whether the screen is supposed to remain the same height at all times and simply get wider when it's CinemaScope, or if it is in fact supposed to be not as wide as CinemaScope but a little bit taller.
The screens at movie theaters do not have top-down masking.
Not anymore. They used to at one point.
I mean, they may have, but I can't remember the last time I saw masking come down. I've only ever seen masking come in from the sides. So the sides come in. So it opens up as wide as it can for your 2.35 to 1, and then it comes in. But it's coming in, a fraction of what.
Well, and also, CinemaScope, the way it works is that they're just putting an anamorphic lens in front of the same projector to stretch it horizontally. So, yeah, I mean, the real answer I would suppose is that they're supposed to be the same height. CinemaScope is just supposed to be wider. But I agree, when you're watching a large film like that, Spider-Man, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man is another example that is 1.85 to 1. It does feel a little bit weird if that image is considerably smaller than your CinemaScope movies. So there's like you say, the 4-way motorized masking would be ideal. Now, what can you do if you can't afford 4-way motorized masking? There's a few solutions that I've come up with because I've thought about this a lot for myself. One thing you could do is make pseudo 4-way motorized masking, which would be to get a 2-way motorized masking screen. So get a 16:9 screen that has motorized top and bottom masks. And actually, SeymourAV is offering a much more affordable frame that does that now. It's called their Proscenium frame, and it's a two-way motorized masking screen. So you could get that at 16:9 with top and bottom masking. That would be motorized. So you're looking in the sort of $3,500 to $4,000 range, depending on size there. Still pretty expensive, but nowhere near the five figures of the four-way motorized masking. Then, to make it four-way masking, you could get motorized curtains that come in from the sides. Now, that's not going to be, like, perfect, but, you know, it's kind of pseudo four-way motorized masking for a lot less expensive. The other solution, of course, would be to get two screens. You could start with your TV-sized screen and either have that be a flat panel if you're sitting close enough, or just have a 16:9 screen that's the correct size for TV viewing, and then either have that be a roll-down screen that comes down in front of your larger screen that's behind it, or have the larger screen come down in front of the smaller screen. Pick your poison, whichever way you want to do it. But either way, the larger screen, if you get that with motorized top and bottom masking, or if it's a roll down one, just motorized top masking, then you can have constant image width for both CinemaScope and IMAX, and then you roll that entire big screen out of the way, or you roll the little screen down in front of the big screen for your HD TV viewing. So a two-screen solution, one of them big with top masking, so you have constant image width, and one smaller screen for your HD TV. That'd be the way to do it.
Yeah. Or just have a 16:9 screen. Don't worry about it.
And live with the black bars. That's Tom's solution. It is the cheapest.
What's best for ceiling treatments, he asks, diffusion or absorption? And if you really have mostly hardwood, which you have a rug for a certain area, does that count as absorption? It's not the same as having installed carpet, right? Okay, what's best for ceiling treatments? Diffusion or absorption? Best would be a mixture, but that's true no matter where you put it. A lot of people put diffusion on the ceiling, tend to, because it's easier to put diffusion on the ceiling.
Often weighs less.
Yeah, than it is to put absorption. And it's a lot easier to hang a lot of absorption around the room and then put some diffusion. Now, I've been in rooms, and I didn't necessarily agree with or disagree with what was done, but there were a large amount of diffusion panels that were put right over the seating area. Mm-hmm. The person whose theater that was ended up not liking that, had them all taken down. I don't know if he was right or wrong, because it wasn't my theater. I sat there like 3 times, but that was his experience. To me, there's uses for both of them, but if you were to, there is not one that's better for ceiling. They basically should both be up there if you could. In a perfect world, you put some diffusion and put some absorption and diffusion and absorption, and make sure the absorption hits the first reflection points all over the place, and then diffusion hits everywhere else, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the real answer is you first want to measure your room because what you want to be able to see is what are the decay times across all of the audible frequencies. And what you're hoping to see in your measurements, so you'd be looking at your waterfall charts for this, and what you're hoping to see is a smooth, gradual rise in decay times from the highest frequencies to the lowest frequencies. So the lowest frequencies should have slightly longer decay times just by virtue of they take longer to form in the first place. So of course they're going to be slightly longer. But it should be, like a smooth rise going on. You don't want to see a bunch of jaggies along the way. So if what you're seeing is a whole bunch of jaggies in the higher frequencies, basically your room needs more diffusion because that's what's going to smooth out the high frequencies. Whereas if you're seeing a lot of problems in the lower frequencies, you need lots of big, thick absorption, preferably with air spaces behind it as well, because that's what's going to affect the lower frequencies. For a just sort of rule of thumb, you want about somewhere in the range of 25 to 30% of the total surface area of your room. So remember, you got 6 surfaces in a rectangle, floor, ceiling, and the 4 walls. You want about somewhere around 30% of that to be covered in absorption and an additional 20 to 30% covered in diffusion. that will normally make for a really good rectangular room. So you could just take that as a rule of thumb. You could say, I already have carpet, I already have some of my walls treated, so I don't really need any more absorption in this room, therefore I'm going to put diffusion on my ceiling. Or it could be, I have nothing but hardwood in here and very little absorption on my walls, so I have space on my ceiling, I'm going to put absorption up there just so I can get closer to that 30% mark of absorption. That could be a rule of thumb way of coming at it.
And when you're looking at your rug on your floor, does that count as absorption? Well, it depends on the rug and what's underneath it.
Yeah.
If you just have, a thin rug that's just a little bit of carpet essentially, and you throw it on the floor, it's not really doing much.
No.
It'll do a little bit for the very highest
high
frequencies.
Yeah.
But it's not going to do much absorption. When we talk about absorption, we're talking about bass. So to do that, you would need a thick pad underneath it as well, which you probably don't have because most people don't want to trip every time they try to step on the rug, which is what would happen. And I've been in rooms where they have had thick pads underneath rugs, and I've tripped on them, and they're very disconcerting to do that. So that's why we often say when you carpet your floor, put as thick a pad underneath it as you can because the entire room will be that way. There's nothing to trip on, essentially. But it does give you some absorption. Will just throwing a rug in there absorb something? Well, it won't absorb nothing, but it's pretty dang close. So, your thick furniture, if it's leather, well, it's having some absorptive qualities, but it's also having some reflective qualities because the leather is going to reflect, a little bit more of the high frequencies than maybe something like a normal canvas or whatever, burlap or whatever they call that stuff that's on there. The fabric coverings would be
just the plush fabric
stuff. And that's what I have in my room. Now, do I count that as absorption? I do, but when I put my new couch in here versus my old couch, which was part of it was covered in fabric and the other part wasn't, did I notice a big difference? No, I didn't. But I already had a lot of absorption in here as well, so it's not really for me that big of a deal. Is having a carpet on the floor the same as having installed carpet? Well, if you install the carpet and don't put a big pad underneath it, it's kind of close, so it really depends on what you do underneath that carpet. Right. It's not the carpet itself. Are you going to add to that?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, let's go on. Nick. Wow, you usually always have something.
I know, I'm saving my voice here.
Okay, all right. Nick previously asked us which acoustically transparent screen he should buy for a setup where he wants to sit about 8.5 feet away and have a really large, greater than 50-degree field of view, basically a 1-to-1 screen ratio with width to viewing distance. He also wants to hit the full 100 nits recommended by HDR and projectors. This is a man who's never seen it. And he doesn't want to see the visible weave on the screen. We recommended the LunaVision 4K audio weave as an alternative to the SeymourAV Center Stage UF, since the LunaVision material claims a higher gain. Nick wrote directly to LunaVision, and their general manager, who is also an engineer, responded. It's easy to claim you're an engineer, but let's go on. He said that did you see his degree? He said that while the listed spec is a 1.15 gain in real world deployment, it should have no trouble delivering a true 1.05 gain. And that to see the weave, you would need to be about 24 inches away, and that they have one of the tightest weaves available on the market. That all sounds well and good, but is it too good to be true? Didn't we recommend this? We recommended it, right? We recommended it?
I recommended the LunaVision, yep.
I mean, I think I don't know if everything 24 inches away. I bet I can see it at farther than 24 inches away. But I'm sure there's some people that have a hard time seeing it at 24 inches away.
I think that figure is true for, that's how close you have to be to actually see that it is a weave.
Yeah. As
opposed to any visible texture of the screen whatsoever. You can definitely be farther than 24 inches. So I think he's saying that's how close you have to be to actually see that it is a weave, which is fair enough. And as for the gain, I mean, I don't have a big reason to totally doubt this. However, the LunaVision audio weave, the fibers that they use are very, very similar to Seymour's Center Stage XD material. It's a little fabric fiber with a coating on it to sort of increase how much it reflects the light. But then because it's a weave, you lose some of that gain from the coating.
Right.
So there were the measurements of the XD. That one claims like a 1.0 gain. It came in at like 0.94 or 0.96 or something like that. Very, very close. And everything tells me that the Illusion Vision audio weave should be very, very similar to that. So if he's saying 1.05, I don't know, maybe it's going to be closer to 0.95. But either way, still higher than the center stage UF, which claims to be 0.8 and measures at 0.8. Right. And we worked out all the sizes for everything. So he sort of increased all the way up to 120 inches, and that was going to be pushing it. But if he gets back down to the 100 to 110 inch size that he says originally, even at a 0.95 gain, it's enough to get just to 100 nits with the projector he wants to use. So
there you go.
Ever so slightly smaller screen, no real reason to doubt those figures. It's not too good to be true because those are reasonable things to claim.
So what about Elite Screen's VMAX Dual AUHD? Oh, no, AUHD.
Yeah.
Anyway, screen. How would this stack up against the Illusion Vision and SeymourAV options? I thought the Elite Screens was the one where we could see the weave a little bit better. I know I could see it from a distance, but I don't know if I could see that one. Is that the same one?
No, it's not. It's basically it's not quite as good in any way,
right?
Versus the Seymours and the. Now, I want to make this clear because we've recommended. So that's the Acoustic Pro UHD material. Mm-hmm. For the price they're charging, it's darn good. Right. But you're making some small compromises to hit that price. The weave is not quite as tight. The color is not quite as neutral. There's a little bit of color shift to it that you have to calibrate for in the projector. And you can. It's just, it's something you have to be aware of. And it isn't quite as bright as the Center Stage XD or the Illusion Vision audio weave. So little compromises that have to be made, but in return, you get a lower price tag. But I know that, what he really cares about, what Nick really cares about is performance in this case. So I wouldn't recommend saving the money to step down to the Acoustic Pro UHD. Not in this instance. For a lot of people, I would say yes, but for Nick, no.
Peter. A while back, Peter asked us to not scroll past this question, for $1,000 sealed subwoofer suggestions. We mentioned the Rhythmic F12, HSU ULS15 Mark II, and Power Sound Audio 15S. All right. He ignored all of that, went way over budget, and bought an SVS SB16-Ultra from Best Buy.
Woo!
Those are like way more expensive than $1,000.
Those are $2,000, so you went double the budget.
Yeah, okay. I don't know that I would have done that, honestly, but hey. Yay! Would any of the subs we suggested have given the SB16 Ultra a run for its money at a much lower price point? Well, you see, the thing, Peter, is when you give us a price point and you give us a room size, we give you a subwoofer suggestion. And buying a bigger, more expensive sub for your room size, all you're doing is basically not having to turn it up as loud but perhaps you're getting some lower performance, but the loudness is never going to, you're level matching it, so it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. I would venture to say that any one of the subs that we would have suggested for you will work. I don't remember the size of his room. So, I'm
not sure if he actually even said the full size of his room. I can't recall. Well,
that could be it too. Okay, so let's pretend that you have a medium-sized room. Mm-hmm. I that's a fairly normal options here. So let's say you've got a medium-sized room, in which case any one of the subs that we suggested was going to give you 90% of the performance or 95% of the performance that the SVS is going to give you. I think that's fair to say. But if you have a much larger room, then the SVS is going to be able to give you a lot more than these, or give you more than these other ones can give you in the ability to play louder and maybe a little bit lower. Now, would it have been worth the extra $1,000? I don't know, man. Probably not, to be honest with you. But that's just me.
Yeah, thankfully these days, pretty much all the subwoofer manufacturers are putting out CEA 2010 measurements, which is a pretty standardized and pretty reliable way to be able to compare just pure output figures, because that's really all it's measuring is sheer output. So going by those, the Power Sound Audio 15S would have come the closest to the SB16 Ultra out of the $1,000 subwoofers. However, it still can't quite match the full output capability of the SB16 Ultra. Now, interestingly, the SB16 Ultra is mathematically about twice as powerful as the Power Sound Audio 15S, which sounds like a whole lot, but it equates to only about 3 decibels more. Remember that 3 decibels is literally twice the power. You double the number of watts, you get 3 decibels more out of an amplifier. So same thing going on. So the SB16 Ultra is legitimately about twice as powerful as the Power Sound Audio 15S. So that would have come the closest. Is that worth a full $1,000 more? Probably not, but the SB16 Ultra has the nicer looks for sure, and it's got all the extra features that none of these other ones have, the ability to control it with the app, having the front-mounted light-up controls, all that kind of stuff. So it's not that you're getting nothing, but that would have come the closest.
Did he want it sealed? Yeah, he did want it sealed.
Yeah, he wanted sealed.
So, they're all...
Yeah, if you got vented, that could have been totally different ported. Yeah.
So he tried positioning his SB16 Ultra all over the place, in quotes, in his room, but he always ended up with dead spots. He found one location where he gets good response, but only for one sweet spot, and actually sounded best with the SB16 Ultra turned around so that it's facing the front is facing the wall. His wife isn't happy about seeing the wires. Okay, I don't know. SVS tried to offer... SVS tried offering him a lot of suggestions, which he appreciated. Subwoofer crawl, adjustments to the settings, things of that nature. They also said they would have exchanged his SB16 Ultra for any of their other models if he had bought directly from them, but since he bought from Best Buy, you have to return the unit to them if you wanted to try something different. So what should he do? Would a ported model instead of a sealed model do anything to fix his problem? No, your problem is that you're trying to place one subwoofer in the room and you're finding out that you're having a hard time getting even response across your entire space, which is something that we talk about. I'm trying to remember how often we mentioned this on this podcast, about 17 times an episode about having
that might be an exaggeration, but
not much.
We do like to recommend the dual subwoofers.
Once again, we don't know what your room is like, so maybe this doesn't help you. But if you take your $2,000 sub, you return it to Best Buy, and then go buy two $1,000 subs and place them in opposing corners or mirrored locations across your room, and you have a sealed rectangular room, you're going to find that you're going to have even bass response across your seats without you having to do anything or any of that, turning things around or any of that nonsense. Just shove them into the opposing corners or put them in the middle of two opposite walls, and Bob's your uncle. You've got good response. So yeah, that's kind of the solution there. The problem you're running into is the same problem we had been dealing with for, I want to say, decades before Floyd Toole did the whole, and what's his name?
Sean Olive. Yep.
Olive did that research, the modeling that showed, hey man, if we just put the subs here, they will give us even response. Everybody's like, that can't possibly, hey, it worked. How did we not know this before? It's because for years we all thought, well, if your speakers are up front, all your subwoofers should be up front. And because it made intuitive sense, and that's why science is not intuitive.
Yeah, the intuitive of the bass should all be originating from the same locations as the high frequencies. Yeah. That makes sense if you just picture it. You're like, if a sound is emanating and it's a bass sound and it happens to be emanating from the same location as a treble sound, shouldn't it come from there? Of course that makes intuitive sense, but it's not the way bass works in a small room, which all rooms in a house are a small room. Yeah, they suggested doing the subwoofer crawl. The subwoofer crawl helps you find one good location for one seat. And that's exactly what he described. Right?
What he did.
I got one good sweet spot. That's exactly what the subwoofer crawl is for. That's exactly one sub can give you one darn good seat in pretty much any room. But all the other seats, they might be way too loud in some frequencies. They might be nearly silent.
Hey, this was our advice before they, Sean Olive and Floyd Toole did that research, was find the two good spots and then put both your subwoofers there and pray. Because that was pretty much what we had nothing else. We had nothing else, but now we know. So getting a ported sub, would that no,
that won't help you at all.
That won't do you any good. In fact, if you take a ported sub and then face it towards the wall for this reason, the reason that you talked about, like Rob said, just flip the polarity switch if that's if your wife doesn't want to
set it to 180 degrees in the settings.
Should allow you to be able to turn your sub back around at least. But really what you need to do is return that sub and get $2,000 subs.
Yeah.
That's what
is true. Yeah, if you got two of the Power Sound Audio 15Ss, you'd be giving up, you wouldn't be giving up any output at all, because two of those subs across the room from one another should give you about 3 decibels more headroom than just one of them, which equals now the output of a single SB16 Ultra, but now you have two of them across the room from one another, and you fixed your uniformity problems. So that's the way to go.
And then you make sure you get a receiver that has multi-QXT or YPOW with RSC and all that.
Absolutely have to, but
it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt.
Nelson. Nelson has a Marantz AV8802A processor that he invested in buying the Audyssey Pro kit instead of just using Multi-Q XT32. Audyssey Pro runs on his computer and it spits out some before and after graphs. He likes some help understanding what the graphs are supposed to look like, though. Are all the after graphs just supposed to be perfectly flat? Is that the goal? Some of them still show dips, small dips or humps, and they all have high end and low end roll-offs of some kind. So does he have good results, or should he be doing something more to make further adjustments? Okay, dudes, like straight up, I have to tell you this. Okay, where is it? There it is. Okay, so I looked at this and I was just cracking up here because these results are ridiculous. So they are so ridiculously good. It's insane. So they show the measurement of his front left speaker. And I don't know, Rob, are you showing this on the
I've got the graphs up there. Yep. They're
so
a little bit small on the screen, but
they are small, and I'm sorry. But you can see, like, the front, there's a black, there's a black graph, and right next to it is a red graph. The black is the before, the red is after. The black almost, they really honestly don't look that bad. Like if my speaker looked that bad, I mean, for the most part, it looks pretty good. There's a little dip towards the high end, and there's some, peaks and valleys sort of in the base area, which you kind of expect in all of these graphs. But they look pretty good. But the after graphs are stupidly just so flat. They're just like ruler flat, and they start rolling off at the top end. You can see where they're rolling off. And this is essentially what Multi-Q is trying to do, is give you a flat frequency response until your speaker its performance starts to taper off, and then it gives you as flat as it can as it's tapering off. There may be some roll off that it's doing as well, depending on what Multi-Q setting you're choosing, but that should be what it's doing, and that's why you've got some bass that's going pretty low, but not every speaker is going all the way down to the end. Like the center channel rolls off, and the surrounds roll off quite a bit higher than the front left and rights, which you would kind of expect because most front and left and rights are a little bit more powerful. And then with our subwoofers, just what is this other one? Subwoofer 1 plus 2. Okay.
Yeah, so it's both of the subs together, summed together.
Right, summed together. Look just
there's
flat down to
teeny tiny little dip in there. There is teeny tiny little dip in there.
I mean, come on.
Because it was correcting a much larger dip from before.
Yes, it was trying to fix something that was awful and turned into something that was almost inaudible, or probably inaudible. So yes, these are fantastic looking graphs as far as I'm concerned. I mean, these look really good.
Yeah. Overall, totally. I will say clearly the program has set the front left and right speakers to full range, to large.
Yeah, that's a problem. But
that you would want to change, especially given that if you look at the response of the subwoofer 1 and 2 summed together, you have some very nice, flat, deep, extending right down to 20 hertz bass.
Is that with it? I can't tell where these graphs end. I can't.
Yeah, they end at 20. They end
at 20. Okay, so yeah.
So given that your summed together subs 1 and 2 go right down to 20 hertz really linearly, there is no reason to run your front speakers large. None whatsoever. So manually give them, I would say, an 80 hertz crossover. Clearly your front left and right speakers can play down to 80 hertz without an issue. So that would be one change I would suggest making. Now, the other side of it is Audyssey Pro, very much like Dirac or like the new Audyssey Editor app, allows you to manually change the target curve if you want to. The default target curve is flatness.
Right.
So that's what it's done, clearly, by the graphs that you have as your after measurements. It's just gone for pure flat. Now, a lot of people would say that you don't really want 100% flat in a room. It sounds slightly unnatural because we expect to hear a gradual little bit of a rise in the bass when we're in a smaller room. That's what we would anticipate to hear. So that maybe should be what our target curve ought to be. That is the default target curve for Dirac, is a slight rise in the bass. Is the default target curve for Anthem room correction. So you have the option in Audyssey Pro to make that your target curve if you want to. You can manually do that. The other thing that some people say is they don't want to apply any equalization above a certain frequency. Very often they want it at the point where, so there's always a point where your room takes over and all you're hearing essentially below that point is reflected sound. Usually that's happening somewhere around 250, maybe as high as 500 hertz at the most. So a lot of people will say, I don't want any room correction. I don't want any equalization being applied above let's say 500 hertz. And you can do that in Audyssey Pro if you want to.
Right.
So the nice thing is you can save all of these configurations in your laptop, load them onto your processor, try different ones. So there's no reason not to experiment. You're not damaging anything. Just make sure that every time you save a configuration, it's a new separate file that you can load individually. So if you want to try no equalization above 500 hertz, if you want to try a gradual rise in the bass, go ahead and do those things, because lots of people would say to do that. But by the default target curve, you've got excellent results. So that's it.
All right, to stop the coughing, I had to insert a cough drop. So
Here we
if you
go.
hear something clicking against my teeth as I'm talking, I apologize. Infinite Gary. Gary watched an interview with Oscar-winning film editor and sound designer Walter Murch. Apocalypse Now, The Godfather 1, 2, and 3, The English Patient, and many more. Apparently none in the last couple of decades. When asked about future innovation, he talks a bit about delivering binaural sound to an entire theater audience, but hopefully without each person having to wear headphones. Okay. He likens it to 3D video. The left and right ears get completely separate information, just like the left and right eyes when wearing 3D glasses. It wasn't quite clear to Gary what Walter Murch was proposing. Can we clarify? Yeah, that's not possible. So, I mean, without having speakers, not having speakers and like something wrapping around your head so that it's not actually headphones, but they're shooting into your ear. Even then, they'd have to be
maybe in the seat back in front of you.
Even then, they'd have to be like those super duper small dispersion electrostatic panels, meaning that you would have to sit in the very specific location in order to make sure you got the right sound in order for that to work. So what he's suggesting is essentially like science fiction. It's not feasibly possible given the technology we have right now. I mean, we could do it, but no one would enjoy it. Like, you might as well just put headphones on at that point.
Yeah, I mean, some kind of super specific beam forming, but I mean, I could see that being done for a very small audience of people, but for a whole cinema of people, man, oh man. I mean, I guess at some point we might have the processing power that it could even be, cameras.
Yeah, but then you can't turn your head. You can't turn your head.
This is what, maybe cameras are facing the audience and can literally react to each person's head and beamform in real time. Like, maybe one day we'll have the processing power to make something like that happen. But otherwise, yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, why not just wear headphones? I mean, you can do binaural sound by wearing headphones. That's kind of easy, in fact. So why not just wear headphones? I'm not quite sure why he's so opposed to that. But yeah, that's all he's talking. I mean, binaural sound is just your left ear and your right ear get completely distinct sound. You record the sound by using usually a dummy head or sometimes even a real person's head and having microphones in the ears of the dummy head so that the full head-related transfer function is captured by these microphones that are embedded in the ears. And then that captures very convincing sound moving all around you, in front of you, through you type of sound. That's what the binaural experience can deliver. But yeah, the way you normally get it is by wearing headphones.
So in Gary's dedicated theater, he's had the side walls' first reflection points treated with a combination of absorption and diffusion. Occasionally, he'll get the separate sensation that a sound is originating from well outside the edges of his front speakers. In fact, it can sometimes sound as though the sound is originating from somewhere behind his side walls, as though the room were wider than it actually is. He doesn't get this sensation in his other setups, but then again, his other setups are also using different speakers. So what is responsible for this beyond-the-wall illusion is actually a good thing. Is that what sound engineers intended? Yeah, it's just imaging. And when we talk about imaging and soundstage, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability to place even in a two-channel environment. There's a track that I use from Yellow that I haven't talked about this in a while, but it's like track 12. I don't remember what it's called. It's called something stupid because single thing on that album is called something stupid. But it has this thing where it's like basically is what it sounds like, right? Except it starts on the right and it goes all the way across the room and back again. Now, depending on the speakers I have in the exact same room, like I would use this as a test, sometimes it goes from one speaker to the other and back again. Sometimes it starts way on the other side of the room or outside the room, all the way through that second speaker, outside the room again, and then back again. It usually had the first part was usually pretty easy because it was a lower sound. But as it got higher, usually had a hard time going past the second speaker.
Yep.
That's where I knew how wide that sound stage could be. Is that what they intend? Absolutely, that's what they intend, Gary. That's what they intend. Why is it that you're experiencing in this room? This room has got, your reflections are better controlled, which means your speakers are giving you the sound that you're absolutely demanding. And in your other rooms, are you having that same level of control as far as reflection and diffusion and absorption and that sort of stuff? Probably not. So that's, to me, it's a combination of what speakers you're using, but more likely I think it has to do with how well treated your room is.
Yeah, it's the importance of the dispersion, the sideways dispersion of your speakers sounding very similar to the on-axis sound. That's one key component. So your speakers do play a role in this. It's not like...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they absolutely do. And then in order for that sideways dispersion to maintain having a very similar sound to the on-axis sound, which is required to create this illusion, you do need to control those sidewall reflections. Otherwise, you end up either with a time delay that your brain picks up on or a frequency abnormality from the reflection that your brain picks up on. And that is what tells your brain there's a wall there. And your brain picks up on that. Whereas if you control that sidewall reflection, you eliminate that issue and your brain just goes, the sound is wherever the direct sound told me it was. And that actually kind of relates back to the binaural thing, because with binaural sound, where you've got headphones on and your left ear and right ear are getting completely discrete sound, they can create the illusion that you're in any size of space, no matter where you physically are. So you only need the two ears to make that illusion happen. But as soon as you create either a time or a frequency difference between the reflected and the direct sound, your brain can pick up on that and go, there's a wall there.
Right. So we talked about wanting at least 4 overhead speakers for Atmos, but now we're seeing receivers and processors that can deliver 6 overhead speakers. And of course, the home version of Atmos can use as many as 10 overhead speakers if you have the Trinnov altitude. So what would we say is the optimal number of overhead speakers, and would that number change depending on how large your theater is and how far away you sit from your your screen and your front speakers? I think the optimal number of speakers is whatever is appropriate for your room size. I mean, that's what it really comes down to for me. It does have to do with your room. Just like they're not a 7.1 or 7 speakers going around you is not always appropriate for your room. There's just times where we're like, 5 will be just fine.
True.
You just don't have enough room behind you. And sometimes if you have a theater big enough, 2 overhead speakers really isn't enough.
It usually isn't.
2 overhead speakers, it would be nice to have 3 on each side. I'm saying 2 pairs of overhead speakers, so 4 overhead speakers. I think for larger theaters, you really want your top fronts or your front heights or whatever you're going to call them, your middles and your rear, your back heights or whatever you have to call them in order to make this thing work. Because you just have too much space above you,
right? Essentially.
So this helps that overhead. But if you're in a smaller room, 2 pairs is perfectly fine.
Yeah, it very well might be, because if you're in a much smaller space and you have speakers that are, say, just 2.5 or 3 feet in front of you and 2.5 or 3 feet behind you, that's not very much. That if you want to create a sound that's directly overhead, even though we don't have an ear on the top of our head for stereo location in that direction, it still works pretty darn well if they're that close to you. But if you're in a much larger theater and your top front speakers are 8 feet in front of you and your top rear speakers are 8 feet behind you, then creating the sense that something is directly overhead, you're going to want top middles without question. You're just not going to get a very good front to back stereo effect above you if your speakers are that far apart because of the size of your room. So, I mean, I would say in what we would consider a more idealized theater where you have the room for top fronts and top rears and you're not, closer to your back wall, so you have to have top middles and top fronts only or something like that, I would probably go for 6, just so I have that full fill of the sound directly overhead and then in front and behind. But yeah, in the smaller situation, 4 will do. I'm rarely going to say you need 8 or 10. You'd have to have a really large theater before that comes into play.
Yeah. Still with Infinite Gary. Sony's professional website now lists their PVM X5500 as a 55-inch OLED mastering monitor at $27,810. It's a $10 that broke it.
Yep.
It was okay if it was $27,799, but that $810 is just too much. Anyways, that Sony says is meant to be a companion to their $45,000 30-inch BVM X300 OLED mastering monitor. What sets these professional monitors apart from consumer OLED TVs, and what justifies those sorts of price tags? Would consumers be blown away if we got to watch Ultra HD Blu-rays on one of these monitors instead of a consumer-level TV? I gotta be honest, I didn't get this far down these questions. And I'm gonna go get some water, so you answer. I'll be right back.
Sure. So in the case of the 30-incher, that is a full-on mastering monitor. Those things are usually professionally calibrated, sometimes as frequently as every day, and they are designed to allow such granular control of the colors and the grayscale and the gamma that you can dial them into basically pure perfection, right exactly where the spec says to be, the exact coordinates of the colors on the color diagram, the exact nit levels up to a maximum of 1000 in the case of the BVM X300. Just exceedingly fine granular control. The PVM X550, which is based on LG's 55-inch OLED panels, so they're starting with the same sort of panel that you get in the consumer displays, but similarly they're giving it the far more granular control, and that's really what it's about. Now, why would they say that a 55-incher costs $28,000 while a 30-incher costs $45,000 and the 55er is only meant to be a companion to the 30-incher? Well, that's because since it is based on those 55-inch LG panels, they can't get it as accurate as that little 30-incher. As ridiculous as that sounds, they can't actually do it. So it's meant to be a larger screen that you can sort of view the finished or close to finished product on to get a better sense of scale, with very close to the same accuracy of colors and grayscale, but not quite. You still go back to the 30-incher for the absolute best. Would we notice it on a consumer level TV? I'm going to just say no.
Yeah.
Even if you had them side by, so Vincent Teo, the guy from HD TV Test, right?
Yeah,
He is an uber geek. He is a professional calibrator. He got his hands on one of the 30 inches and he's like, being able to dial it in that perfectly, he can appreciate it on a technical level. But even with them side by side, it's like the differences are so darn small. So my answer to would we go gaga overseeing it? No, we really wouldn't.
Yeah. So Gary knows that some of the videos and write-ups about the new Denon X8500H have named it the AVR-X8500H, while others have named it the AVC X8500H. What's the difference, and why were the AV forums guys in the UK talking about having to be careful to call it an AV amplifier rather than the AV receiver? Does that mean it doesn't have a FM receiver? That's
right. No FM tuner in the outside of North America. It has no FM AM radio tuner.
Well, I think over there they stopped doing FM, didn't they? Or they do something else? I remember they had when I was in Australia, they called it something. It started with a D.
Well, I mean, they have a dedicated input for a radio tuner. Plus, it has internet radio built in. So AVC stands for AV controller instead of AVR for AV receiver. The word receiver very specifically means amplifier, preamplifier, and tuner all built into one chassis. That's what receiver means. So they're like, we can't call it a receiver. We have to either call it a controller or an amplifier. Right. It's an integrated amplifier because it is a preamplifier and amplifier in one chassis. But
when was the last time anybody turned a receiver on to listen to the radio? I know. I'm sure there's people that do it.
You can use the internet radio.
So. I don't. I can't imagine. But then again, I don't have mine in my living room either. So I do listen to music in other parts of my house, but I understand it. But I think in the UK and other places they switched from like an FM band to a different sort of band, and I can't remember what it's called. But I remember that you got it through your cable box, like the little box you got for cable. It was like a digital thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Gary was listening to the commentary track on the new release of Murder on the Orient Express. I haven't listened to a commentator track in forever. The commentary features Kenneth Branagh and screenwriter Michael Green. Gary could swear that Brennan's voice is coming distinctly from the left woofer of his center speaker, while Green's voice is coming strictly from the right woofer of that same center speaker. Gary has listened to a lot of commentary tracks and never heard this sort of placement before. How is that achieved? Is one a bass and one is a mid, and therefore their voices tend to reside more in one than the other? That would be my guess.
It's just stereo imaging.
Both in the center channel?
No. I mean, that it seems like it, but all they did was slightly pan Branagh's voice to the left and slightly pan Green's voice to the right. That's all. It's just stereo imaging. They
when I first started this podcast, I used to do that.
Yeah.
When I first started this podcast, I used to put it out in stereo, and I would slightly pan my voice to one side and Dina's voice to the other.
There you go.
No one ever commented on it. But
I mean, I listen to podcasts through one earphone, so I would find that slightly annoying because one person's voice is always going to be quieter than the others if you do that.
That's right, and that's I just kind of stopped doing it because I mixed it down to mono just to shrink the size of the file. Yep. Because I was running into file size limits when our videos went from 20 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you don't have to hard pan something all the way to only the left speaker and only to the right. You can just ever so slightly pan it to the left or the right. That's all they did.
So Gary read an older review of some Revel Performa speakers. Revel, I'll get it right. I like to say Revel. I don't know why. I'm going to say things wrong, and we're just going to be okay with that.
Sure.
Speakers that include a Q&A with Kevin. Nope.
Thanks.
Go ahead. At the end. In that Q&A, Kevin mentions that the enclosure is the single largest expense for any speaker. Is that true? Why would an MBF box be more expensive than any of the components that are inside? Well, the box doesn't, I mean, first of all, when you're buying, it depends on the drivers that you're buying to begin with, but the box is not just the MDF. There's a lot of stuff that goes on to putting this thing together, and the finishes that go on the outside, the bracing, the gluing, the screwing, the waiting for everything to dry, the curing, all that stuff. I mean, the enclosure does make a huge difference. And if you, and I have absolutely no data on this or insider knowledge, if you were to ask me what I thought changed the price of the RBH speakers from $700 to $1,100, I would guarantee you that I would put all of my money down on they could not find the same people they ran the people who made the first ones out of business because of how cheap those enclosures they were getting those enclosures for. That would be my guess. The enclosures are making the difference.
Yeah, no, you add up. So there is the material cost of the MDF. There's the labor, which is huge, and then there's just the size and weight of having to ship and store them as well. Because they usually travel a bunch of places. Most
it's so weird, right? I mean, I was just listening the other day to like a radio program. They were talking about making shoes and how they've got like a couple of like they're trying out a new I don't remember what kind of probably Nike or Adidas or something like that was trying out a new way of making shoes so that they can make them all at one factory.
Right.
Like they had to come up with a super simple shoe to do it with because most shoes, like it's not, most of making tennis shoes is weighting. Yep. Like you set them, you pour whatever the rubber stuff is into a mold and then you heat it up or whatever and then it starts to cool and then you got to let it sit for 2 days. Yep. And then it's got to go someplace else. They add something else to it and then it's got to sit for 3 more days. Then you go someplace else. You know, it's going all over. You know, it's going to Malaysia. It's going to go to Singapore.
In the cabinets as well. There's a lot of weighting. For the finishing process.
Yeah. Especially if those nice Red Burl finishes, those do not happen overnight. You know, they just don't. So it all goes into that. Yeah. Lastly, Gary says, and there's really no way to none of us could understand this question exactly right. So we're just going to read you what Gary wrote us, and here we all are together in this. Quote, it's winter dry, you're standing on carpet and charged. Touch a metal chassis and get a spark. Same idea, but it relates to sound. Is there a way to have sound produced as if there is an energy to it, as if it is tense and waiting to explode big time? Have never heard a setup to experience this, so what is required if doable? I mean, sound is literally energy. I mean, it is.
Well, I don't even get the first part of this. Like, if I rub my feet on a carpet and I have built up a static charge, I don't feel anything until I touch a piece of metal. You can.
If you spill up enough of a charge, you will feel it. As you get close to something else, you will, like your hair will start to stand up. I mean, I don't know how much humidity you guys have up there in Vancouver, but when I was down in California, like LA, it was awful. Like I would walk around with the key out.
Okay.
And I would never touch a door handle during the winter without hitting it with the key first just to release the static charge that was going through me. And even then I would get shocked half the time after I had released some of it through the key, and then I would touch the knob and still get shocked. So I kind of understand what he's saying. I think what he's saying is what you're describing, Gary, is pulling back a guitar string and having the anticipation of it releasing and then making a sound. Well, that's not something you hear. That's something you see.
No.
You see that, then you have that anticipation, and anything you hear is part of the movie soundtrack that lets you know that something's going to happen, and there's a building up of music underneath it. So what is it? There is no setup for this. This is a experience that I can't imagine that you could have other than by seeing something. You would see something on a screen that would tell you that a sound's going to happen. You would get that feeling in the back of your neck, that little tingle that says, I'm about to experience something, and that anticipation is coming, and therefore, just like I know I'm filled with static electricity, I know I'm about to get shocked, here it comes. That's not something that you hear. That's something you feel and you see, in this case, see. So what is required to do this, if doable? A monitor.
Okay. I got nothing, so that's a better answer than I would have given. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. You're welcome. I have to blow my nose.
All right. Well, maybe I'll start Christian's then. So a couple of weeks ago, Christian said he is ready to upgrade something in his theater. And since he already has a pair of RBH Impression Series first-generation bookshelf speakers and the big Impression Series center, he was excited for the release of the second-gen Impression Series. But now that the second-gen is posted on RBH's website, Christian is disappointed to see the $1,100 price per pair for the towers, and he's also disappointed that there's no more Red Burl finish option. There's just the flat black and the gloss black. So since his bookshelves and his center are both Red Burl, he can't get matching finish from the new series. So he got to thinking, since he has dual subwoofers already, does he really need towers? He definitely wants to replace his surround speakers, which are leftovers from a home theater in a box. So should he just order one pair of the new RBH R5 bookshelf speakers, call it a day at that, or is there some alternative we think he should maybe go for?
Well, we don't know how big your room is. Let's just start with that.
We do. We've seen Christian's room several times.
Well, I don't remember it. So how big is it?
It's not. His room is not that large, but it is kind of open. But it's still not gigantic. It's like townhouse setup, and he's not sitting terribly far away.
Yeah, if you're not sitting that far away from these speakers, then there's no reason for you to go to tower speakers anyways.
Right. Well, I mean, basically, you can already answer this. You already have the first generation RBH bookshelf speakers. Are they playing loud enough for you? Because all the towers can do is play even louder. That's really their only major advantage. So if you have no qualms about how loud the current bookshelf speakers play, you don't need the towers. Simple as that.
Right. And then what are alternatives? Well, I mean, RBH speakers in general are very neutral speakers. Yes. So what are your alternatives? Just like oodles of them. So you can almost pair them with anything that is also trying to be fairly neutral. Mm-hmm. So any of the Focal Bird speakers that we've talked about a number of times on this podcast would be good.
Oh, for the surrounds? Yeah.
For the surrounds. That's what I would do. I would just leave your speakers where you have them. You got three matching speakers.
Yeah, because you got the three finish match. Yeah.
And I would get something different for your surrounds if that's what you're really worried about. What did he say he had for surrounds? I don't remember.
Just home theater in a box speakers.
Yeah, from that's what I would do. I would just replace your surrounds with something better, but not necessarily super expensive. I wouldn't necessarily even go with more RBH speakers, to be honest with you, because you can get away with something like even the NHTs, the SuperZeros, or something like that,
which are actually more expensive than Little Birds. So
you could
still just go Little Birds.
You could go Little Birds. You could go Birds. I wouldn't go Super Birds, but you could go Birds. You could go. Maybe even Kefs if you really wanted to. I mean, I don't know why you would, because that's probably even more expensive.
Well, I mentioned that, but I was thinking the ELAC Debut series.
Sure, why not? That's good too.
The Gen 1s that are still available, or the new Gen 2s. Now, if you really did want towers, like just for the form factor, let's say, those ELAC Debut towers would not be a bad choice, because at least they're in the same sort of price range as what the first generation Impression Series towers were. So yeah, that'd be one decent alternative.
Yeah. So if he goes for bookshelves instead of towers, he might be able to afford a new receiver too. His setup is 5.2, and he'd like to be ready for 4K and HDR. He thinks he'd like to save up for an OLED. So it might be a while, but at least his sources and receiver would be ready. At least if he got something that was all compatible. Mm-hmm. Is it super important to get Audyssey Multi-Q XT32? Would it be okay with only Multi-Q XT? What receiver model should he buy? See, how many times on this podcast am I like, get the cheaper one? I mean, I'm always get the cheaper one guy.
Yep.
Because that's sort of where I live. in this whole crazy the setup here. I tend to settle knowing that the differences are not going to be as audible as that. That being said, for me, the deal breaker was going down to was not getting sub EQ, and I really wanted XT32 with sub EQ. I really wanted that. That to me was enough of an upgrade that I wasn't willing to consider a receiver that didn't have that.
Okay.
Now, audibly, how much difference does it really make? Well, I don't know, but I will tell you that ever since I've got XT32, my room has sounded better. Now, I also got two subs around the same time.
Oh, well, yes.
Placed them, in correct. Well, I had two subs before, but I got two SVS subs, and I placed them better than the last two subs, and that made a difference. So, I would, there's a couple of things here, but if I were going for an upgrade, I would think that sub EQ, XT32 with sub EQ would be worth it.
Yeah, and you can get it for $500 in the X3300W. So Accessories for Less is still selling the Denon AVR-X3300W that has multi-Q XT32, it has sub-EQ EHT, and it's $500. So it definitely could be affordable depending on which speakers you decide to buy, given that you might have been prepared to spend $750 or $800 before. Now, my question is, are you planning to go Atmos? Because if you are, I probably want you to get 4 overhead speakers, and the X3300W can't do that. It tops out at 5.2.2 for an Atmos configuration.
So you can still find $1,000.
Yeah, you can still find models like the X4300H and the SR6011, not at Accessories for Less right this second, although they might get more stock back in. But if you check Amazon and some other places, they do still have them for around $800. So that's a pretty big price delta, $500 to $800. But that's what you have to spend if you want a model that can do 4 overhead speakers. So if you don't need the 4 overhead speakers, then 3300W, $500. It's very enticing to get XT32 for $500.
So just an update. We told him to get a microphone stand with a boom, and he did. Now he just needs to find the willpower and the time to take a gazillion measurements. And he also tried Rob's suggestion of reversing his subwoofer cable that was picking up a hum from his TV cable, and apparently it worked.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
You've got one of them cables that is the shield is only attached on one end.
Right.
Common thing.
Yeah. I know it's only 10:18, but I'm like, at this point, I'm almost at the Kleenex, and I'm starting to get concerned that I'm not going to make it through this podcast. But I'm going to try. I'm pushing through, Rob. I know you feel like
we have many questions.
I don't care. Brent is a longtime AV Rant listener. He stopped listening to us for a while because he was happy with his home theater setup and didn't want to catch the upgrade bug and start buying more stuff. Dude, Brent, listen to me and listen to me carefully. I want to tell you something. Good job. Good job, sir. I will never begrudge somebody stop listening to us because they don't want to upgrade. How many times have I said on this podcast where I'm like, listen, you bought something new, stop listening to reviews. Stop reading reviews, stop Googling things, just stay off the internet for 6 months so that you can enjoy what you have. Good job, Brent. That was a good choice on your part, and I 100% approve. But now he is moving. And the buyers of his old house want to keep his theater. So it's time for new toys in his new house. So his new room is an irregularly shaped space in his basement. As you enter from the stairs, you'll be in the largest section of the basement where Brent would like to have his 2 rows of seats facing the only thing he's keeping from his previous theater is a 106-inch black diamond projection screen. There are large windows on the left wall, a bedroom to the right rear of the theater area, a small office at the back, and then an open area in the rear right where Brent would like to set up a second projector to serve as a golf simulator. All told, it's about 7,500 cubic feet thanks to having 10-foot ceilings. And at the moment, the stairs are open, so he's seeing if there's a way to install a door either at the top or the bottom of the stairs.
Yup.
Okay, so I'm a little confused about this golf thing. Is it behind the stairs based on this picture I'm looking at here?
Yeah, it's the green section if you're looking at the diagram.
Oh, it's the back right. Okay, the green section. Okay, I got it. All right. So for those of you that can't see the picture because you're listening to the podcast, his seats are facing the wall. There's windows on his left side. On his right side, there's the stairs, and it looks like, I don't know, maybe I don't think there's a walkway there. but there's
No.
just the stairs.
Yeah.
There's the stairs to his right. Then on the other side of the stairs, there's a closet. Behind the stair, well, behind him and mostly behind him and behind the stairs. On the right side, there's the golfing area, which doesn't really have a wall, it doesn't look like. There is a bedroom on the left side, which is enclosed, but it's sort of a weird shaped thing. But he says it's L-shaped, so the L is actually, he is at the top of the L, his screen is at the top of the L, he's facing there, and the L goes to the right, behind him, into the golf area, if that makes sense.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and there's bathrooms and stuff.
It is irregularly shaped.
It is odd. Yes, it is very odd. I see it. Okay. His previous setup was 7.2 using Klipsch reference series speakers and dual SVS 12 NSD subs powered by a Denon X4000 connected to a 5-channel Emotiva amp. Why did he need an amp? But anyways, he'd like his new theater to be an upgrade, so he's thinking Atmos, but with the odd shape of the room at the back, where do we think he can install surround back speakers, and where would his Atmos speakers go, and does his proposed layout make sense for installing at least 5.2.4, if not 7.2.4? So what he's proposing is 3 speakers at the front, surround speakers that are sort of kind of, he's got 2 rows of seats. So I'm guessing he's sitting in the front row because the surround speakers are to the sides and behind the front row, but they're sort of like
a little bit in front of the second
row. Yeah. But then does he have Atmos speaker placements here?
He has not put in prospective Atmos speaker placements in the diagram, no.
I'm looking at this a little bit more.
So he's like, where could surround backs go? Where could Atmos speakers go? So Atmos speakers, that one's fairly easy to answer because it looks like you got a flat ceiling. Now, you don't have to go in ceiling. You could go, little birds, something that can go on ceiling, NHT SuperZeros that can mount to the ceiling. I'm all for going on the ceiling.
I like putting not rear heights, but top rears and top fronts in this because you've got these 2 rows of seats, and it will give those people who are getting sound blasted directly into them from the surround speakers something behind them, to experience. So, and I think that's going to work pretty well here.
No, I'd go about 3 feet in front of your front seats.
Right.
So straight up on the ceiling, same distance apart as your front left, right speakers, but about 3 feet in front of the front row. Call those top fronts. Right. And then just slightly behind the rear row. Not a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Just
I was thinking like a foot or two behind the back.
A foot or two behind the rear row. Yeah. Same distance apart. Call those top rears. So the Atmos speakers, I think, is pretty easy. Now, surround backs, where could those go? Because you got this office in the rear left corner.
I don't love surround backs in this application. I got to be honest with you. I like 5.2.4.
Yeah, I mean, my only thought was you ceiling mount them. You get something like focal birds that can be aimed, and you ceiling mount them, and you just call them surround backs.
I don't like it because you might as well just call them top rears. I mean, that's what they are.
Yeah, well, you can't really, but if you already have top fronts and top rears, so I wouldn't be opposed to just leaving it at 5.2.4 either. But yeah, if you were going to do surround backs in this space, I would just ceiling mount them. I would have on ceiling pivotable speakers that I could call surround backs. That would be how I'd do it.
Yeah, I would not have surround backs at all. Okay, and any other ideas about the room and layout? He intends to put blackout curtains over all the windows, and he does already have ambient light rejecting screen. He wants his new space to be an upgrade from his own old theater. So what else do we think should he be thinking about in terms of the room itself? I don't know why you need a light rejecting screen in this application. I got to be honest.
Well, it's just he already owns it, and it was expensive. So
okay, now that
cool.
I understand, but I understand that, but I think you don't need it, and I might have left it behind with the rest of the stuff that you left behind.
Well, he had another screen that he left behind, so
I see.
Yeah,
I see. Well, okay. I mean, as far as an upgrade, I mean, he's buying all new stuff.
All new stuff, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he had clips. So, what is he asking here?
He had clips before. He had a Denon receiver, Emotiva amp, couple of SVS subs. I mean, now you've got a larger space than you had before, so subs are a consideration here.
Absolutely. And what should you be thinking about the layout, though? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with the layout as you have it set.
I think it makes sense.
I think this makes the most sense. It puts a little bit of extra room on your left and right. So because if you faced it towards the window and then put a screen that dropped down in front of the window, you'd have a big open space to your left,
the left, yeah,
and then a wall right on your right. You'd be dealing with that reflection, and there's really no other way to do this other than to only have one row of seats and take over that bedroom, which would also be an option, but also quite a bit smaller. So I think you've done the best you can with the layout. And I approve of this layout.
Yeah, no, as for the room and the layout, the two things I would consider are you are going to want higher output subs than you had before.
Yes.
Although you don't have to go insane here. Okay.
No.
You don't have to go absolutely nuts. 7,500 cubic feet while into the what would audioholics call it an extreme room by this point, over 5,000 cubic feet. But you still don't have to go to the absolutely insane level of subwoofers, but it is a consideration. And then like in the diagrams, it looks like hard flooring, but who knows what it'll actually end up being. You do want to pay some attention to the acoustics in here, but no different from any other room, you still want about 30% of the surfaces absorptive, about 20 to 30% of the surfaces diffusive. There's no real difference there. It's just you want to put some in thought. If it's going to be fully carpeted in here, that takes up a large amount of surface area already, and some panels at the usual spots of in front of you, behind you, and the first reflection points will get it done. Whereas if it's not going to be carpeted in here, maybe you need some more panels here and there. But other than that, yeah.
All right. Gear Time, he says. He's still in the same sort of price range as what he had before, though he doesn't tell us what that is, does he?
Well, we can assume. So X4000 was in that sort of under $1,000 price range. Clips reference, not reference.
He might have bought it brand new. Who knows? In addition to the speaker subs and amps already mentioned, he had a Epson 5030 UB projector, so I'd like to upgrade to a 4K or Wobble K. What's the good stuff these days? 9 or 11 speakers, 2 subs, 4K projector, an Atmos receiver, and maybe an external amp. Even though he's targeting a similar price point to his previous gear, he wants, his new system to be better than his old one. He grew tired of his clip speakers and their horn-loaded sound, so it's definitely one big change he's looking to make. Okay. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. Rob will tell you about the projector, but the subwoofers we're going to talk about probably ad nauseum. But as far as speakers go, it's really time to get out there for you to get out there and start listening a little bit. Get an idea of what kind of sound. Now, you can listen to stuff like KEF very easily. You can actually go listen to some really higher end stuff too if you really want.
Yeah, I mean, in this price range, the new KEF Q series that just came out at the end of last year, that would be a very probable choice. Yep.
Right. I like the, of course, we've got the Ascend acoustics and the
Ascend, Aperion, SVS. Bring them all in because the SVS and the Aperion, they're free shipping both ways.
Right.
The Aperions, at least bring in a pair to audition. Yeah. Those are the usual suspects there for sure.
But I like the idea of, first of all, you not buying an amp to start with.
Yeah.
You didn't need the amp to begin with, not with your clip speakers. I don't think that you did. And in this room, you're not sitting far enough away from anything to need an amp.
Yeah.
So don't buy an amp.
And like we're saying, probably going to top out at 5.2.4 anyway, which the AV receiver will handle.
Right. So if you do want to buy an amp, make it a sort of luxury buy. Like, I just want one. Sure. I don't need one, but I want one.
In which case, maybe get a monoprice monolith, because, man, those are nice.
And that's fine, too, but do it afterwards. Like, let it be a Father's Day
let
or
that be
your birthday
the last
present.
thing on your list.
Yeah, it's the last thing. So I like the idea of you not getting an amp, not getting an external amp, saving that money and spending it on other stuff. You know, to get everything wired, make sure you got everything wired, and all the speakers we've mentioned so far. I mean, you can even look at stuff like the ELAC speakers and the Andrew Jones. I mean, anything really. But you want to get an idea of what you like, and then get an idea of how much. I would really like a price point here, because I'm floundering because I don't know what your price point is. You may even want to look at something crazy like the Philharmonics and stuff like that, because if you like,
I'm thinking that's over this sort of budget range. Yeah,
probably. But like I said, I don't know. Now, as far as subwoofers, 7,500 cubic feet, probably looking at something like Power Sound Audio or a
that'd be the value choice. HSU with their VTF 15H would be very appropriate in here.
Yeah. And we've talked about these subs quite a bit on this podcast. Anything that we're talking about for a large room is something that would be good for you.
Yeah.
When you use the problem you're going to have is you don't have a rectangularly shaped room.
Yeah.
So we're going to end up having to look at this room and making some guesstimations about where to put stuff, and then knowing that it's probably not going to work the way
You're
that
probably
we
going to
hope.
have to play with the phase knob of one of the subs a little bit if you want truly uniform bass. But that's just time and trial and error. It can be done.
So I like putting one sort of in that not back left, but you can almost call it the back left corner, back of the bathroom.
Well, he's already put a proposal, so...
Is it there?
Yeah, he's
Where
got the sort of the gray rectangle. So one that's towards the front left. So he's got it like in between his front left and center speaker. And then one, so it looks like kind of the rear right corner of the theater area. But then don't forget, there's the whole golf simulation area to the right of that. So
yeah, I like that. I also like you wiring
Makes
it for that the other side of the theater, right near the bathroom there, that little wall space next to the bathroom in the corner, and then one by the stairs, like in the front where it says 70-something cubic square feet or something like that. That little nook there may be in there.
Maybe.
But I don't know what that is. That could be a bookshelf or something for all I know. So I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work. But I like that placement too, just looking at it. I like the idea of having a golf simulator. I think that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
It's gonna be cool. I think it's a lot of space to be used for something that you're probably going to use, a bunch when you first get it, and then it's going to end up just collecting dust. But that's
who knows? Maybe you might use it a lot.
Maybe you'll use it all the time. Who am I? What do I know?
For the AV receiver, I'd go straight to like an X8400H. It's going to serve you really well. That's the perfect model to get for here. So that's a Denon X4400H. And for the projector, if you want to keep it right at the same price point that the 5030 UB was, well, you get the 5040 UB because that's Wobble K and it does HDR and it does really deep black levels and it's an extremely high value projector. If you want something that's a true upgrade, gets you even darker black levels, even higher contrast, you go up to about $4,000 for a JVC. That'd be the X590 in their current lineup. So that might be, maybe you don't buy the amp and you spend a little bit more on the projector. Get that JVC, because that would be a pretty sweet upgrade.
There you go. Terry. This is how many Terrys have we had so far in this? But it feels like 5. This is definitely more than one. So this is Terry Q. I don't know if the other one was Terry Q as well, but we'll find out. So what's the situation when it comes to backing up 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray discs? Terry has 6 4-terabyte hard drives in a RAID 5 array, and he's already running out of space just with his music and 1080p Blu-rays. So how big do the 4K backups end up being? And is the process significantly different, or is backing up UHD Blu-rays just as easy as backing up 1080p Blu-rays? I thought that we couldn't back up UHDs yet, or you had to do it with with a computer that had the special chipset with the special everything, the motherboard and all that stuff, right?
No, you don't need all the special stuff to actually make the backup. So what you need is make MKV, and the easiest way is just to go to their forum and look up their UHD disc FAQ, which we'll have a link for at avrant.com. But yeah, what you need, so you do need a special drive. The optical drive has to be one of the ones that is considered UHD friendly, but not actually a UHD Blu-ray drive, because if it's an official UHD Blu-ray drive, it won't let you copy the discs. But if you get one of these ones that was just a BDXL drive that has the ability to read Ultra HD Blu-rays, that'll work. So they have a list of which ones work. It's right there in the FAQ. So you pick one of the ones off the list. Then all you need is Make MKV. And the only thing that's different between backing up a regular Blu-ray with Make MKV and backing up a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray is you need to download a little text file that has all the keys for all the discs that have been so far cracked.
Doesn't sound illegal at all when you say it.
Oh, yes, I know. Now they have they don't store that text file directly on Make MKV's forums, but they have a link for where you can get it, which is in the FAQ. And so you just download that text file. You'll have to keep downloading the new text file to get new keys for whenever new discs come out. That's on you to do that. And then all you do is in your Windows computer, you would go to the users file folder under your C drive, and you would find the .makemkv folder, and in there you paste that text file. And once you've done that, it works exactly like it does for all the previous discs. So it's like 2 extra steps, downloading the text file and pasting it into that folder. But other than that, it's the same process. So I've only tried.
How big are they, though?
What's that?
How big are they when you?
Yeah,
when you...
I've only tried a couple. Wonder Woman came out to just about 61 gigabytes. And what was the other one I did? Logan came out to, I think it was like 59 gigabytes or so. So most of the Ultra HD Blu-rays are coming out on the 66 gigabyte discs. So that
it won't be any bigger than that.
it's gonna be around 60 gigs for the most part. So yeah, it's not gonna help you any. It's not gonna make your file sizes any smaller.
Right.
But yeah, and I did try playing it back. So I tried playing it back through Plex, and I tried using the Plex client that's built into my LG OLED, and it actually did play it back in 4K in HDR. But there's no way to get the Atmos audio out of it because I can only use audio return channel, and so that's limited to the non-lossless audio. So I can't get the lossless audio out that way, but 4K and HDR plays. However, it does play it back at 60 frames per second only. So if you want 24 frames a second, if you want the lossless audio, you're going to have to get an NVIDIA Shield. There.
There you go. John's theater is in his 16 by 23 foot family room, which is open via hallway to his kitchen and dining room, which is also 16 by 23 feet. So he's basically got 32 by 46 foot space. He's been pretty happy with the setup, but listening to us has him considering some changes. So we have some pictures here of his space. It's hardwood. He's got a screen. He's got a I think that's a TV under his screen. Is that a TV under that screen? Or is that a speaker?
Fireplace under his screen.
Well,
with the speaker in front of it.
I can't see the speaker. And then he's got a couch, which is plush with a blanket over it. And then behind that, he's got what looks like tower speakers. Maybe it has his surrounds kind of tucked behind his couch.
No, those are on stands, bookshelves on stands.
Well, I can't see them. Anyways, he's been using a mix of Sonus Faber centers and surrounds, Klipsch La Scala front, left, and rights, and Martin Logan in-ceiling speakers. Should he be hearing a huge tonal mismatch? One would think. Would it make a world of difference if we replaced his Klipsch La Scala speakers with Sonus Faber speakers to match his centers and surrounds? So I had to look up these speakers because I didn't recognize what these speakers were until I looked at them. They are some sort of weird design I've never seen before. So are they old or they're new?
The Klipsch?
Yeah.
Oh, they're a classic design going back quite a ways.
So they look like they have a bookshelf speaker lying on its side on top of a empty bookshelf, which
that's just a horn.
Which is not a bookshelf. It's actually a horn.
It's a big old wide horn with a grill over it. Yep.
Yeah. So it's very strange. They're about $4,000 each. So these are not cheap speakers.
No.
Horn loaded, obviously huge horns, and extremely efficient. Now the other speakers, he doesn't say what they are in here, but they can't possibly be as efficient as these speakers are.
I would highly doubt it. Yes.
So would I buy speakers to match his Sonus Faber speakers? Would he hear a difference? I don't know, dude. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures, and you've got your front, left, and right shoved all the way to the right and left of your thing, which is fine. They're not angled in any way, so there's no towing going on. The left one, it looks like it's mostly firing into your equipment rack, which is glass. At least part of it looks like. I mean, it's see-through. I don't know if it's see-through or if it's glass or what. So I don't know if there's any line of sight to your left speaker whatsoever. So I'm hesitant to say that you're going to see a huge difference. I don't know. You seem, first of all, if you're pretty happy with your setup, then I'm tempted to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if you're going to fix it, like start from scratch, because you've got
a little bit of that, isn't it?
You've got such a mishmash of all very good brands of speakers that all have their own unique sound, that all don't try to be like anybody else, and that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't be in the same room together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, should he be hearing a huge tonal mismatch? Well, it's a little bit of you tell us, because
really, do you hear one? Because how would we know? We're not in the room.
But I would expect one. Yes, I would have expected one in this instance, at least between your left, center, and right. So, I mean, if anything, I'd be looking to maybe replace your center speaker, because the surround speakers I'm not very concerned about. The efficiency doesn't matter because they're so close to you. That's output isn't going to be an issue.
Right.
So I would maybe consider replacing your center speaker to be more similar to your front left right rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
But if it's not,
what is he going to get to replace those? He's going to need one more of those speakers. I mean, another $4,000 for a center speaker. I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, Klipsch has some big old centers that lie horizontally if you want to go that way. Yeah. So I don't. It's tough for me to say. I mean, I would be playing, pink noise through them and going, yeah, that's a timbral shift from pink noise.
Well, not only that, I mean, he's got his speakers as far wide as his room is.
Yeah.
You really don't need a center channel in this instance because you you are not sitting outside of your speakers, so that you're always sitting in between your two speakers in some form. There will be a center image there that you can hear. So my first test would be to unplug that center channel and see if
that's
it
a good idea
better.
Anyway, because that'll tell you if you have a tonal mismatch.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, this Phantom sounds so much, less different than when I have my actual center speaker active, that tells you right there. Yeah, that's a good test to do either way.
Yeah. And then if you really want to have a center channel, I would probably get rid of your center and go with something that matches the Klipsch better if you want to keep your Klipsch. If you're really looking for completely different speakers, I would get 5 completely different speakers. All the way, I'd go all the way around probably. Your surrounds probably, I mean, you could keep your surrounds if you really wanted to, but the front 3 for sure, I would replace all 3 of those. He's been using a single Mirage BPS 400 sub. He rarely turns it up loud, but if he does, everything rattles. Pictures, vents, the fireplace, the windows, and the walls themselves. Is the sub actually too big for his space? So his sub's got a 400 watt amp, but can peak out at 1600 watts or something stupid like that. It's really high. It's is it 18-inch driver in there or something? I can't remember. I have it someplace in here. Where is it? I don't remember where
I didn't actually look it up.
I looked it up, but then here it is. Here's a picture of it. It can't be an 18-inch driver. That's ridiculous.
Probably a 15.
But it's it doesn't say. Let me tell you. But anyways, it's spec'd down to 18 hertz, which is quite low.
Yeah.
It's 1600 watts max power output. I can't find the driver size. Subwoofer. No. It's not going to tell me. Why would it tell me? Why would I want to know that? Why would I want to know the one thing that is important on a subwoofer? But whatever. So is the sub too big for your space? I don't think so. I think your sub is sitting directly on your ground.
Yes.
Without anything to buffer its vibrations from it to the ground. So you need some sort of dampening between your sub and the ground. So what would that be? Well, I would start with a rug.
I'd start with a folded up blanket.
That's what I meant. It's a folded up blanket. I said rug because I was looking at the rug. And then if that makes a big difference, I've got some there are sound isolation pads to sell you. $200 a piece.
Right.
You need 4. You probably need 8. But yeah, seriously, you could go to SVS, get the feet.
Yeah,
they're the sound path isolation feet. You could go to what's the other one?
Oralex
Subdued.
I can't recommend those anymore. They're so overpriced. It's stupid.
They are now overpriced, I know, but go to SVS. But he might not want to put the feet on the sub, or he might not be able to. They might be weird. I don't know. So that's another option. But basically, what you need to do is just get the sub off the ground.
You need something squishy under your sub.
Does that mean that you're going to have no vibrations around your room? Well, I hope not, because you should have some.
You'll have
because
some,
that means you're doing something right. And then you just track them down and then damp them out. And then how do you do that? Well, blue tack is your friend. If something is rattling on something else, just put some blue tack underneath it. Rubber insulation tape I get from a big roll of it from Home Depot, and any doors and stuff like that. I'll put those on there. It's really, really easy to do that. And I think most of it is just direct vibrations from your sub traveling through the sub into the floor and shaking the everything else in your house. So get it off the ground and tell us how much better it's doing. Next, he used to use a Pioneer receiver, but now he's using a Marantz AV7702 Mark II Pre-Pro. He's always just run MCACC or Audyssey and pretty much left it alone, but he's noticed that Audyssey set different crossover frequencies for each of his speakers. It says clip speakers to large, so you manually set all of his speakers to small with 80 hertz crossovers. I think that's a good place to start, except if your receiver set the crossover higher than 80 hertz, then I would trust the receiver.
Yep, that's about all there is to it. I mean, try to get your bass under control first.
Yes.
Because the whole idea is to be able to nicely, seamlessly transition from the speakers into the sub, and the sub is handling all the deepest bass. But once you sort out your subwoofer issue a little bit, then yeah, all your speakers should definitely be set to small, and then only if the receiver has set it to something higher than 80 hertz, leave it there. But if it's set it to lower than 80 hertz, move it to 80 hertz. That's almost always the best way to go.
Yeah. So a friend gave him a spare 12-inch Polk sub. Since Audyssey always set his front clip speakers to large, but had set his Sonus Faber center to small, he thought he might try adding a 12-inch Polk subwoofer to his center speaker. The XLR output from a center channel feeds the B&K amplifier, so he used the RCA pre-out to feed the Polk sub. Is this a good idea? Nope. Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
And that Polk sub is not up to the quality of anything else in your system.
No. Just thank your friend very much and hand it back to him and say, I don't need that.
Or use it in a spare room or something. That's fine.
Yeah, something, but you don't need it in here.
No.
The floor is hardwood with a couple of area rugs. He has blackout curtains over his windows and his front door, and his couches are fabric covered and fairly plush. But that's about it for absorption. He's considering adding corner bass traps, diffusion panels on his rear wall, and possibly some panels at his first reflection points. How much difference will those acoustic treatments make? Let me scroll back up because I forgot what room. You need acoustic panels behind your couch.
Yeah,
I think is the first. I would first reflection points and behind your couch. I would definitely treat.
Yeah, and if you're worried about how they look, because maybe you thought the diffusion panels would look nicer behind the seat, because he already has pictures there, and I guess they'll be replacing that. You can get printed absorption panels that have any image you like on the panel,
as long as that image is yours to.
And so, that can be some lovely looking artwork that also serves as absorption behind your seat. I agree. That's number one. And that could make a significant difference to how your center speaker or your dialogue sounds.
Or your Phantom center sounds.
Or your Phantom, yeah. That could make a significant difference having absorption behind your head because you're quite close to that back wall. The rest, yeah, I'm tempted to say it's going to be one of those you might notice it more by its absence if you got used to it and then took it away.
Yeah,
because that's more about cutting down the reverberation of your room, everything else. But having,
he's got a huge bass trap, which is his other room, right?
That's right.
I mean, as it goes down that small hallway, the bass is going to start reflecting around that other room. I don't know that you need a ton of bass trapping in here, but I would definitely put the panels at the first reflection point, saying behind your.
So let's make a change, seats. Not diffusion, absorption behind your head instead.
Yeah, no, I don't think you need diffusion. So what do we think overall? What changes will be the most worthwhile to improve a system the most?
Decoupling your sub.
Decoupling your sub will make the most. And then the acoustic panels will make a difference, I believe.
The ones behind you. Yep.
The one behind you. And just unplugging your
center.
Your center channel, I think, could make a difference. And we're really not spending any money here, are we? We're just...
Well, for the panels.
Maybe a little bit for the panels, a little bit for the subdued or the isolation feet, and you're good.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty good. Considering that dude spent like $8,000 on those the front, left, and right channel, I feel like we could have spent a lot more of his money if he tried. But, yeah. Joel on Twitter. Are we almost done here? Yeah. Let's say you've run Audyssey for an Atmos setup and it's at all the distances and trim levels and such. What's the best way to confirm the levels it is set? Just play the receiver's internal test tones and look at the levels on the SPL meter, or should you use external tones from a calibration disc? And if you're using an external source, can they play discrete test tones through the Atmos speakers? Dude, there is no reason not to use the internal tones of your receiver. This is not rocket surgery. This is test tones. And all of them are just fine. I would 100%. And not only that, I don't even bother testing them anymore because a lot of times the distance levels have more to do with phase than they do anything else. And sitting there with a ruler and a tape measure and measuring them out and saying, oh, well, it says it's, 3.1, or 1.2 meters, and it's really 1.3 meter. It's like, dude, it's close enough. It'll be fine. And so I would not even bother with anything you're talking about.
I would use the internal test tones in an SPL meter because that is the trim level setting that's set in there. So that should work. It should read 75 if your SPL meter is C-weighted and slow response. Should come out to 75 dB from any of those internal test tones. If you want to, you could use something like the Real Traps Test Tone CD. That'll only have front, left, and right because it's stereo only. Yeah. But you could use that just to confirm that your front, left, right from an external source match the internal. And if they do, and they really should, then you can just trust that the rest are okay as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's about how I would do it for confirming. And the external sources, no, I haven't really come across any that do a full individual Atmos speaker thing yet. So
I haven't either.
Yeah, I've seen ones that do 7.1, but not full Atmos yet.
Yeah. Joel has a pair of Paradigm ADP, which are adaptive dipole surround speakers, on his side walls, very close to ear level, and just a tiny bit behind the seats. He has his top middle speakers mounted to his side walls, up as high as close to the ceiling, up high and as close to the ceiling as possible. He finds that both sound more diffuse than he'd like, and he'd prefer better distinction and pinpoint sound. Could he make his Paradigm surrounds more like monopole somehow? Well, dipole speakers have a dead spot smack dab in the middle of them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've aimed them at your head. That little crease there that looks like it's in the middle, it looks like you've aimed them towards your head, which means you're aiming the dead spot towards your head. So if I were you, I would aim them at each other. The surround speakers, I would aim them at each other and try to, so that you're getting basically one a little bit closer to right there, firing into you, and the other one's firing into the wall, and not whatever.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how easy it is to get inside of those particular Paradigm speakers. Cause
we're not talking about cutting wires. That's
not cutting, but I mean the ADP speakers from Paradigm. What it is the woofers are in phase, so they're acting like a bipole, but the two tweeters are out of phase.
So you just attach one tweeter.
Yeah, so you could just disconnect I would go rear-facing tweeter in this case, because there's one that's kind of forward-facing, one that's rear-facing. If you can somehow easily get in there and just disconnect the wire to the rear-facing tweeter, it has now essentially become a monopole speaker for all intents and purposes. Yeah. So you could just do that.
Now, the top speaker, though, that is a monopole speaker, isn't it?
It is,
From what I can tell. So I don't know how to make it less diffuse.
Yeah, I mean the reason it's sounding diffuse is because right now it's sort of firing across the room above your head. It's angled down a little bit, but not.
You got to angle it more towards the ground.
Yeah, so I mean one thing you could do, I don't know if there's enough swivel available that if you actually lowered it just a little bit that you could aim it more directly at you. Or could you ceiling mount these things so that they're more directly above you and aiming kind of straight down? Because that's the only way to make those sound more distinct and less diffuse, is to have them aiming more directly at you.
Okay, hold on a second here. Ecobee.
What? What's happening?
I am roasting in this room. I'm trying to. How do I make it?
You're trying to set your temperature over the internet. Is that what's going on?
I'm trying to, but it's not doing the eco.
This is a wonderful use of our last remaining minutes of this podcast.
I'm done with this podcast.
We got to do at least one more so we can get to.
I don't have to do anything. I'm so hot. It's 1,000 degrees in here. It's just the wrong temperature for Florida. It's too cool outside. Adriano in Australia. You're it, dude. After this, we're done.
Okay.
Adriano's friend needs to buy a 110-inch motorized screen and projector. He wants to minimize unneeded cost. The screen needs to be recessed into the ceiling. Is it worth paying extra for a real in-ceiling model, or since he'll be doing the mounting during overall home renovations, could he buy a regular screen mounted above the ceiling and have the builder cut a slit for it to drop through? I mean, technically, you could do that. This is what you should do, though. You should just create like a baffle. What do you call it? Just like a little masking for it. Just take some molding and build a little box around it and put a normal one just mounted to the ceiling the way it's supposed to be, and then put a little thing around it. Because if you put that slit there and it misses as it's falling down, I mean, you're just begging for problems here. dude. And then you'd still have to build a box in. I believe you would want to build a box inside the attic because it's not meant to be exposed to all those elements up there. So you'd want that box to be completely enclosed to keep everything away from whatever's up there.
It's not necessarily in ceiling rated either as far as fire and electrical safety things are concerned. I would go for a screen that says it can be mounted in the ceiling if you want it recessed. Now, I'm not sure about in Australia. Like, I know Elite screens, they have some of their less expensive ones where they actually have the option. You can get it either way. You can get it either as a wall/on ceiling mount or as a recessed mount, and you have the option for that. So I don't know what the availability of Elite screens is in Australia, but I would go for one that is actually properly designed for that, because the slit you would have to cut in the ceiling anyway would be larger than you think, because there's the whole weight bar at the bottom of the screen, which is thicker around than you might be imagining. That's a larger slit into your ceiling than you would really want to cut. So get a proper one.
It doesn't remember my password. I'm so sad right now. It's so hot in here. How important is tab tensioning? How do you know when it's needed and when it is not? Is it size related? Well, I think it's kind of counterintuitive. The bigger the screen, I think the less it. I mean, it's kind of more, to me. It's more where you place it in relation to like vents and stuff like that. A smaller screen though will wave a little bit easier because it's lighter than a bigger screen. But a bigger screen will catch the wind easier because it's a bigger sail. So when is tab tensioning needed? When you can afford it.
Yeah.
When you can afford it, it's absolutely needed. When you can't afford it, you're like, I really wish I could afford it, but I cannot. So that's my answer.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not absolutely necessary. I would say it is darn nice to have once you get above about 120 inches, because just the sail and the wave effect does start to come into play above 120 inches. Usually, I think of it as almost a requirement if I'm going for an acoustically transparent, because I want that tension held securely for something where the sound has to get through the holes. But yeah, if it's going to be under 120, if you're trying to keep the cost down, if it's not going to be acoustically transparent, I wouldn't lose sleep over it.
So he's considering the new BenQ HD2550 4K projector. I guess it's the W1700 in Australia. Is that a good choice? The room is open concept with lots of windows, but he's only expecting nighttime use. We all always expect nighttime use until a game comes on during the day.
So that whole crop of $1,500 DLP projectors that actually use it's a 1920 by 1080 resolution chip, but it shifts 4 times per second to create the 4K resolution. So it's wobbling around 4 times for every, or not per second, per frame. It's wobbling 4 times per frame to create the 4K resolution. That whole crop, the BenQ, the Optima, there was some other brand that had one, of ViewSonic, I think, all using that same chip. Not getting the greatest reviews. The black levels are pretty poor, which not the end of the world. But the main thing is that because the way it's shifting this thing around, they all have this halo of light around the screen at all times. There's like this light bleed all the way around the screen, which is not pleasing to many people. And apparently the HDR on the thing, even though it accepts and is compatible with an HDR signal, is completely useless. It like really doesn't make any difference to be in HDR mode, and it can't do wide color. It's compatible with wide color, but it can't actually show wide color. They struggle to show Rec 709 color. Given that, the Epson Home Cinema 4000, which I'm sure has a different model number in Australia, but it's the Home Cinema 4000 in North America. That one is $300 more in North America. It's an $1,800 projector instead of a $1,500 projector. But I mean, you go and buy any of the reviews, it is worlds better than any of those. So it's really tough for me to suggest getting one of those really inexpensive 4K DLPs. I have to say go for an HC 4000 instead from Epson.
So last year we suggested a particular monoprice HDMI switch that includes audio extraction so the optical audio connection can be used. However, that switch tops out at 10.2 gigabits per second. There's no mention of supporting HDR. What our Adriano's friend wants to be able to do is use several 4K HDMI sources with a 4K HDR projector while sending the audio to a Sonos soundbar using an optical audio connection. No AV receiver in the signal chain. I don't like your friend very much. I'm going to just throw that out there.
That's okay.
I'm
I mean,
just saying,
Sonos can do genuine 5.1.
I just don't care. I'm just telling you right now. I don't like this. Just get a receiver, just man up, get a receiver. So what we would recommend today to make sure that all the 4K HDR goodness makes it through to the projector. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I'm too sick to care. Go.
Yeah, I was looking for HDMI switches that have the full 18 gigabits per second and audio extraction, and I didn't really find any from brands that I trust that had all that built in. So I'm kind of suggesting a two-part solution. Number one, there's the HDMI switch that I really like, which is Sewell's Switch Deck. That's 5 in, 1 out, and it is full 18 gigabits per second, full HDR support, all the stuff. So signals are definitely getting through that switch. So all your sources go into that 5 in, 1 out, Sewell Switch Deck HDMI switch. The one output I would then feed to an extractor. And there's the company we've been talking about a fair amount lately, Avantry. They have an extractor that specifies fully will pass through 18 gigabits per second. They even mention Dolby Vision explicitly. So it has one input, one HDMI input, one HDMI output, and audio extracts the audio to either optical or just a regular stereo analog output jack. So you'll have the optical output that you need to feed your Sonos soundbar from this Avantry extractor. Both of these devices are very specific, saying they'll pass the full 18 gigabits and HDR. So it's a two-part solution, but it's not crazy expensive. They're both about $45. So yeah, it'll get the job done.
Okay, last but not least, at what length do you need to consider going from regular HDMI cables to active HDMI cables? His friend needs about 40 feet. Adriano has seen how some of the active cables mentioned having newer chipsets and them support things like HDCP 2.2. So does that mean that the new HDMI or HDCP spec could render a new HDMI or HDCP spec could render active HDMI cables obsolete in the future? Maybe.
Yeah.
We never know with HDMI. That's the real problem here.
I mean,
we never
we
have
managed to
any
render
idea.
completely passive cables obsolete with new spec.
That's right.
So yes, it's possible for sure.
Yeah. So I would say, 30 feet. It's hard to get.
Yeah, I mean, actually, all of the certified premium HDMI regular passive cables that I've seen have topped out at 25 feet.
Yeah.
That includes even Blue Jeans cable. So all of them have the full premium certification that means they will for sure pass the 18 gigabits per second. They've all topped out at 25 feet. So when do you need active? Longer than 25 feet. Monoprice definitely has their fully active solution. So they even say they're very good about saying they used to have their one called Cabaret. They're like, we have a new one. It's called Dynamic View. That's the one we recommend now because it supports HDCP 2.2 and Dolby Vision and all the things. So that one is good up to about 50 feet. If you want to go longer than 50 feet, you want to get into the fiber optic solution.
Right.
So you said you need about 40 feet, so 50 feet should do you. Yeah, you're looking at about $60 for a 50-foot active HDMI cable from Monoprice. Not too bad. And if you're worried about future-proofing, run it inside of a conduit.
Yeah. That's what you have to do. Unfortunately, that's what you have to do.
do.
I did not do that.
Yeah.
After all the talk in this podcast, when we were building in here, I had some friends come over to help me build this thing. We broke down and built this wall in a day and a half.
Yeah.
And putting conduit in was not even discussed. It was just too much. So, yeah. That's sort of the end of this. Is there anything? Yeah, we're not doing Brock. I'm sorry. That's
a very long question. So coming up next week, we have Brock, Mark, James, Michael, Joe, Carl, and Chris. And then we did get some questions that came in yesterday being Monday. So we did have some questions come in then. You'll be on the topic list for next week.
And everybody, I really apologize for how much extraneous noise has been going on my end of this podcast.
We gave a warning.
I really have not.
I
did not feel that bad today. And that as the evening has progressed, I've been feeling worse and worse. So I am going to thank Terry for his donation. He went to www.avrant.com. and left us a PayPal donation. Thank you very much, Terry.
Yes, Terry. Thank you so much for the donation.
Thank you to our 54 patrons who support us on patreon.com.
Yeah, patreon.com/AVRant podcast. Thank you to our 54 patrons over there.
And thank you, Ash, Joe, and Terry for supporting us by, in respective order, making a cool overlay for their car in Gran Turismo, talking us to the SVS for the other two guys. So thank you, Ash, Joe, and Terry.
Yeah, Ash, thanks so much for that cool artwork. I like that very much. I don't actually have Gran Turismo. This is almost making me want it just so I can find you online. Racing against your cool
gotta send that to. I mean, if Rob gets it, you have to send it to him.
I'm not gonna get it. I really don't play games anymore, even though I wish I could. And Joe and Terry, thank you for saying nice things to us, to SVS. We definitely know they know about us. That's good times.
For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.